Hello? Are we ready? Good. Okay, we will go live. All right, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like a roll call, please, Ms. Viviano.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Connor. Baylor. Mosley.
Aye.
All committee members are present except for Councilwoman Baylor.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'd like to request a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Thanks, the ayes have it. Next, we have, I believe there is 3 items that are up for public hearing this afternoon. So the procedures are, we will read in the conditional use request, and we will then receive a report from the planning department, and we will then open it up for a public hearing. Before that, though, our clerk will swear in any individuals that are here that wish to speak before the committee. So we'll then open up the process, and people will have an opportunity to speak. We're going to respectfully request that you give us your name and address, and then whatever's on your mind, we would appreciate that. After that, we'll close the public hearing portion. We'll open up the questions from the committee, and then all of council. We will repeat that process this evening at 7 o'clock. The only major difference is that we will make a recommendation to all of council either in favor of the conditional use request or against the conditional use request, or to take time and to table the item. So that's the procedures. So thank you very much. And with that, the first item that's up for a public hearing is authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid fence and carport at 2015 13th Street. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. James and Shannon Painter are proposing to construct a 6-foot-high fence beyond the building line at their property along Harrison Avenue and vary the side yard setback for an existing detached carport. The 6-foot-in-height solid privacy fence would replace a chain link fence and would be placed up to the Harrison Avenue sidewalk. The fence would enclose the side and rear yard of the corner property. The petitioner's driveway is located along Harrison Avenue. As such, a portion of the fence will be angled in order to preserve vision when backing out of their driveway. Also, a single-story aluminum frame carport is within the required 3-foot side yard setback area from the western property line. Petitioners are limited by the physical constraints of their corner lot. A variance of 1 foot for the carport and new location for the fence should not have a negative impact on the surrounding property. The carport has been there for an extended period of time and kept in good condition. The traffic engineer does not object to the location of the fence, and the planning staff and planning commission recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci, for that report. We'll now ask if there's anybody here that wishes to testify before the committee this afternoon. We have 3 items that are up for a public hearing, so we'll try to do this all at once. And if you're here for any of the public hearings, we'll ask you to be sworn in now from our clerk, Sarah Biviano.
Sure, and for the record, Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Baylor has joined.
Oh, thank you.
If you're here to provide testimony for a public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Biviano. And with that, we'll open up the public hearing portion for the solid fence and carport at 2015 13th Street Southwest. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request? Anyone in favor? Anyone against? Hearing none, seeing none. We'll close the public hearing portion, open it up to any committee members if there's any questions or comments from anyone, or council members at this time. Very good. I will repeat that we will again have a public hearing this evening and make a recommendation afterward. The next item that's up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct an attached garage addition at 2232 Goodyear Boulevard. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. David and Barbara George are requesting permission to vary the side yard setback for a handicap-accessible garage addition. The single-story garage addition measures 22 feet in width and will extend 12 feet west from the back of the garage to within 6 inches of the side property line. It will be designed to be aesthetically compatible with the existing house and will not encroach upon the required rear yard setback. A variance of 4.5 feet should not have a negative impact on the neighboring church. The addition of a handicap-accessible garage will allow the current residents to continue living in their home and will not be intrusive to neighboring properties. Planning staff and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to the condition. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to testify reference the 2232 Goodyear Boulevard property. Anyone here wishing to testify? I don't see anyone online either. Anyone wishing to testify? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion, open up to any council members on the committee that may have questions or comments. Ms. Connor?
The house is beautiful. They've done some other recent additions, and, you know, I'm all for additional handicap accessible housing.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Any other questions or comments? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to the third item, which is authorizing a conditional use to construct a parking lot at 921 Cordova Avenue for the Maple Valley Resource Center at 1474 Copley Road.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. This proposal is to construct a parking lot to serve patrons of the new Maple Valley Resource Center at 1474 Copley Road. In addition, a 20-foot by 112-foot section of alley between the new parking lot and the Resource Center would be vacated to connect the parking to the building and unify the site. The Maple Valley Resource Center is being established along Copley Road to provide essential needs for the neighborhood, such as a financial institution and cafe. We'll also have programming to teach financial literacy and other workshops to citizens, as well as the ability to use the space for an entrepreneur incubator, event space, and other work-study space. The center will be served by the proposed hard surface off-street parking lot to the north, containing 17 parking spaces and an enclosed trash container. There are currently 8 parking spaces, including 2 handicapped, along the west side of the building. Ingress and egress to the lot will be from the same driveway on Cordova Avenue. A 6-foot-high solid fence and landscaping will surround the parking lot to provide screening between it and the residentially zoned private property. No objections to the proposed vacation have been received from any city department. A storm and sanitary sewer are both located within the 20-foot alley right-of-way. Therefore, it will be necessary for the city to maintain an easement. The vacation and expansion of a parking lot for the Maple Valley Resource Center fulfills objectives of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan and Great Streets Program by providing public services to help meet the needs of residents within neighborhoods and promoting good design for parking areas. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that report, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now open it up to public comment and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor and or against the proposed construction of a parking lot at 921 Cordova Avenue. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor or against the property at 921 Cordova Avenue? Anyone? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion. No one online. And we'll open it up for comments from any of the committee members at this time. Comments or questions? I see Chair Mosley's hand up.
Thank you. Quick question, Mike. So this is just for Cordova for zoning reasons? Because is this up and running yet, this resource center? I didn't think.
I don't believe it is. No, this is just for the conditional use to allow that parking lot, which extends into a residential district.
Okay.
So the parking is a retail use, and it needs the conditional use to get up there.
Okay,
in the neighborhood.
okay, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For the questions or comments, I see Mr. Neal, hand is up. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few concerns regarding this proposed parking lot. I spoke to the one property owner directly across the street from the property and the one business. Here are some of the concerns. One, presently, the resource center has been sitting there, well, the proposed site for the resource center has been sitting there for about 4 or 5 years. The one concern is just the way the city maintains the property presently. There's a parking lot directly across the street, kind of cat a corner, that is never maintained, and the property itself. So the concern is with us pushing further into the neighborhood, um, what are the plans to maintain this? I know if they go forward with this plan, um, the concern is how will this be maintained? The property as it is, and it's not this property, it's just a concern wherever we have vacant lots, but because this one is pushed back into the neighborhood, has been a dumping ground for tires and things. So based on our present practice on how we maintain the parking lot that's associated with the property, which isn't maintained, this one being pushed into the neighborhood, there needs to be a plan to properly maintain this property. I haven't looked at the plans for how it's going to be beautified. The other concern is because it is going to be back into the neighborhood, and now that you're going to pave it, if it's not, is it going to be planning to put lighting back there? Lighting that doesn't intrude on the residents, but lights up the area because of it could become a breeding ground for just people to hide back in the cut, so to speak. So questions are one, concern. One, because we don't do a good job of maintaining the property right now, and the parking lot that's across the street from there, that's on the main thoroughfare, the concern is we're pushing into the neighborhood, making sure that we have a plan to maintain the property. Two, because of where it is, and it gets dark back that way, because I think the only real lighting, there's some lighting on the building presently, there's some lighting over at Keels, but that pushes it back into the neighborhood. Our plans for lighting of that area that doesn't intrude on the residents, but does adequately light that space up.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yeah, we could definitely look at the area, and I could work with neighborhood assistance on that in terms of the maintenance of those properties, and, storage, dumping of debris and that kind of thing. So we'll definitely take a look at that. And then lighting, would definitely be in the plans,
Okay.
so.
Okay, Mr. Neal?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just ask, is it possible, Maple Valley Merchants Association does a very good job of maintaining Copley Road, even all the way down to the expressway. Is it possible that we can have those plans presented to them before we move forward? Not just them, but the two businesses that are directly impacted, Jackson Chiropractic Service that's on one side of the building, Kills Garage Service that's on the other side. They also own the property. He's invested a lot of money in the homeless directly in front of that building, and then the family that lives directly behind it as well.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Any further questions or comments? We will take that in consideration, Mr. Neal. We have that additional public hearing this evening at 7 o'clock in which we will make a recommendation to all of council. Thank you. With that, we will move into the new list of legislation, short of any questions or concerns. Ms. Biviano, can you please read in the first item that we have, which I believe is item number 3?
Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to negotiate, enter into, execute, and deliver agreements and/or other documents in connection with the sale and development of a vacant residential parcel located on Eastland Avenue, consisting of approximately 0.10 acres of city-owned land located between Wellington and Bethany Avenue and existing as Summit County Parcel Number 6843112, authorizing the sale of said property to Antoinette Mills Battles, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Okay, very good. Anyone here wishing to speak on this?
Yes, hi, David Messner, Development Manager. Good afternoon, everyone. This property is, this and the next item are very closely related. They are two small residential lots. They are in a wooded area on a steep incline, and the adjacent property owners wish to purchase them. Since you can't really mow them, it's kind of difficult to call them mow to own, but it would be very similar to that acquisition method.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Is there any questions or comments on this? Questions or comments? Is the consent agenda okay?
That would be fine, thank you.
Very good. I'd like a recommendation for consent.
So moved.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item is number 4.
Item number 4, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to negotiate, enter into, execute, and deliver agreements and/or other documents in connection with the sale and development of a vacant residential parcel located on Eastland Avenue consisting of approximately .10 acres of city-owned land located between Wellington and Bethany Avenue and existing as Summit County Parcel Number 6843114, authorizing the sale of said property to Cassandra Hill Gunn, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the same thing, a small and developable lot on a hill and wooded that we wish to sell to the neighboring property owner.
Very good. Questions or comments? Consent?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Second.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, hearing none. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing the vacation of a portion of Poe Avenue and to enter into a development agreement with FF Reserve LLC Fleet Fast Solutions as approved in PC 2022-80 S&V and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Messner?
Thank you, Chairman. So we previously entered into an agreement, a development agreement with Fleet Fast Solutions for a expansionary project of theirs. When they started work, which they've been going strong at all summer long, they ran into an issue with stormwater, which required them to traverse city-owned property just to the north of that in order to access the storm sewer.
Yeah.
As such, the remaining property that the city has isn't really appropriate for any other uses because they have an easement on it now. So this would just authorize us to enter into an agreement with Fleet Fast in order to sell the additional property just to the north to them, as well as vacating a portion of Poe Avenue so that they could expand.
So we're talking about like what, an acre and a half or so?
Yes, that's correct. It's about 1.5 acres.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cyberling Way. Okay, I see where you're at. And this is going to permit the expansion, is that it?
Yeah, they are already expanding. This will allow further expansion. We were originally intending on keeping this property for a while until they needed it for the additional expansion, but due
Right.
to the complicated nature of construction, it makes sense to get rid of it now.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, good. Questions or comments from anyone? Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. This is the EV stations around the circle over by Eagle Landing, over by Goodyear. So we're talking about, yeah, it's beautiful over there. They're doing a great job. Yeah, this is good.
Very good. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Is consent agenda okay, or you want to pass it tonight?
I'll make the motion for suspension of rules with a favorable report.
Good. Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Again? Very good. The ayes have it. Next item, 6.
Item number 6 is an ordinance accepting a replat for the Riverwood Golf Course Apartments on the south side of Akron Peninsula Road and declaring an emergency.
Anyone here on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. So this is a replat for the Riverwood development. This is for the 35 for sale units that was shown on the approved plans and approved through the conditional use by City Council. But this is to replat the area for the for sale units.
So this is just to memorialize that and have it filed with the county so that it's They can be sold individually?
That's correct. They've submitted the plat to do the plat for that particular part of the development.
Okay, very good, the 35. Very good. Questions or comments from any committee members and council members? Yes, Ms. Holland?
Just for point of clarification for residents, this does not in any way change the terms of the conditional use that was approved in 2020 and does not in any way impact or conflict with the not yet introduced riparian setback terms, does it?
It does not, and that's, in fact, this is fulfilling one of the conditions of the conditional use ordinance, that there be 35 for sale units, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that was a condition that was placed on by this council. So I did, though, get a request from a constituent in writing to speak, reference to this. If you got a minute or two, if you could please introduce yourself and give us your address. I got this written request. No, just push the button, the big one. There you go.
Okay, great, thank you. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Feld. My address is 1111 Cary Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44314. I am the COO and Director of Programming for the Big Love Network. We work on environmental racism throughout the city of Akron. We also sit on the Akron Environmental Justice Coalition. And the coalition just got wind of this about 1 hour ago, so I came down to check out what was going on, as the Riverwoods development is part of the reaction of forming our coalition. So we just would like to reinstate and ensure that as the riparian setback ordinance that has yet to pass, that this is in correlation with the setback ordinance. We want to make sure that there is some sort of mitigation plan that's put forward that the residents get to see before this moves forward. We would love to, again, encourage this body of government to actually talk to citizens of the area around what some of that mitigation process might look like, as we have encouraged you to do throughout most of your development decisions, especially considering our waterways. So again, any information around mitigation and ensuring that it is not actually changing the conditional use decisions that were already previously made on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Nancy Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I notice, and I don't mean to put him on the spot, but we have Mr. Angeloni from the Law Department, and perhaps it would be useful to have a functional explanation of what a plat is and
Okay.
what the act of replatting legally means, so that we're all on the same page in understanding that the material terms of the original conditional use have not changed.
Thank you. Mr. Angeloni, can you please answer that?
What I would rather do, if it's okay, again, not to misspeak, but to send you guys a succinct summary of that, because it's going to be a lot easier to do that than to get up there orally and describe that for you. But we can get that to you right away.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? Oh, yes. Mr. McKittrick?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to mention, this was originally worked out for this to happen with the ownership aspect, and I did have the same questions that this wasn't going to change what was agreed upon. But I do feel that this is an important piece of it, because my experience over the years is when somebody owns something, they're a little more vested into it, they're more interested, and they're more willing to protect it. So I think this puts a whole facet that is an improvement to this. So I am in favor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. As one who was intimately involved, we could say, with this particular conditional use in 2020, I did approach the ownership in reference to the petitioners at the time, approached them for a piece of this property. I can't remember what, 220 units, 200 units, and I believe that the original proposal did not include any ownership. And so we pushed for that and negotiated with them. It was successful in terms of having this piece included, and the developers agreed to that. I don't know exactly where in the plat this would be located, the 35 units. I don't believe it's near the Cuyahoga, but I don't know for sure. So I want to, yeah, you could show us that? Okay. It's going to be well beyond. Also included with that was the 100-foot requirement that we had. Originally, the proposal included some of the units to be built 25 feet from the river, negotiated with them to make it 100 feet. And so we were successful on that piece. I got to believe these are not going to be within 100 feet, let alone, but I'm happy. I mean, if we want to take a week's time on this thing, that's fine with me, and folks can talk about it. And so I'm happy to even make that motion that we refer this item, and if there's a second, I appreciate that. Second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Against? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you. Next item, Ms. Biviano.
Item number 7 is an ordinance accepting a vacation plat for the remainder of Ewing Court west of Adolph Street and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, committee members, this would vacate a section of Ewing Court that runs off of Adolph, south of East Market Street. This is near the SUMA development for future development. SUMA's been acquiring some properties and recently acquired some property from ODOT in that area and requested the vacation of that little stub of Ewing Court, which there's no city purpose for. So this plat was submitted that shows that vacation, and this would just accept that plat.
Can we, do you have a map? It's not attached, or at least not that I see here on here. Do you have a map, Mike?
I did not bring one down, although I do have the plat right here. I can bring out to you and show it to you.
Could you?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, you see that.
Could take a quick peek at this. I was going to say, we should be able to just stick it up there, Ms. Biviano. Maybe we'll work with our friends in planning whenever we have some of these map type things, and we can see it on the big screen. Screens, plural, I guess. Street.
No, it's like housing and everything. Human resources.
Terry, you want to see that?
Yep.
Market Street. Okay. So it's, yeah, it's just a little, it's 1,000 feet.
Expressway, Adolph's over here. It's just this little piece.
So how close is it to the houses? There's like 3 houses that sit there.
It's nearby, it's in that area. But
Well, that's-
SUMA owns the property all around.
So the houses must be further this
Down
way.
this way, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's these markets, so these two are private. That's that building that's for sale.
Oh, this is like close to that fertility?
Yeah.
clinic? Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's 1,000 feet,
Okay.
so. Cool. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Is there any further questions or comments on this? Is consent agenda okay on this, Mike?
Yes, consent
Okay.
order.
Is there a recommendation for consent? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Thank you, the ayes have it. All right, the next is number 8.
Item number 8 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement or agreements with the University of Akron to assist with the rehabilitation and transformation of the Polsky Building located at 225 South Main Street, Akron, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Very good, thank you. I received a correspondence also for someone to speak in front of us today. We have a visitor here but someone we certainly know very well. Mr. Segedy is here, and we miss you, Mr. Segedy, from these hallowed halls. But if you'd like to speak on this, or Mr. Volleman, would you like to do the introduction? I Didn't mean to intrude on your introduction.
Well, I wanted to introduce Mr. Sagady, but that's okay.
Okay, you can do it. Go ahead.
No, actually, what I wanted to say was, the university, it's been, announced and publicized is undergoing a over $40 million renovation of the Polsky building to make, to revamp it as an arts and cultural and academic institution that is truly going to be a big part of downtown and Main Street. We have proposed entering into a grant agreement with them to provide $1 million of that funding over a 4-year period, starting this year. If you have questions about the project itself, as I said, Jason Sagady is here. This is the reason they took him from us was for this project, I think. So he'd be happy to speak about it, I'm sure.
Thank you. Mr. Segedy, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you. Great to see all of you again, and I appreciate the warm welcome from both of you. President Miller sends his greetings to all of you, and we really appreciate your consideration in considering funding this project. It was mentioned, but my role at the university, I'm the project manager in the office of the president managing the renovation of this building. So if it pleases the council, I'll be brief, but I wanted to just give you a little feel for what the project entails and a little bit of background for how we got here. So I know you're all familiar with the Polsky building, probably primarily as a place to go to Starbucks, which we will ensure there will be coffee in the future, but we would like to really enhance that building a lot. So building was built in 1930 as a department store, as you all know. It closed in 1978. In 1987, the University of Akron acquired it, opened in 1993 for classes. So it's served us well for 3 decades, but it's fair to say that it's in need of some love and a little bit of an upgrade. And so the building is a huge building. I know a lot of you have been in there many times, but to give you a sense, it's an entire city block. It's 5 stories. And maybe the best way of thinking about it is it's the size of over 3 Walmarts. So it's a really large building, 427,000 square feet. So President Miller really sees this as a generational opportunity to reinvent the building. Primarily the vision for the project is to create a hub for the arts and for creativity, as well as retaining the academic functions that have served the university well, but really to literally and figuratively open the front doors on Main Street, upgrade the building, and make it a hub for where, yes, it's still an academic building in one facet, but also where the public is invited to come in and participate in many different activities. So there could be a performance space, there could be galleries for the arts, studio spaces, things like that. We're working with a team of architects. We hired Hassenstab Architects here in Akron, along with a national partner, SCB Architects. As far as the budget, Sean mentioned that, $40 million. We've got a $20 million grant from the Knight Foundation. The other $20 million we're working on fundraising from private, public, and nonprofit sources, including all of you. Thank you again for your consideration. I think the time is really right for this project when you think about what's gone on Main Street, both the renovation of the Civic and the construction of the Knight stage, Main Street itself being physically upgraded, and then Lock 3, which is under construction right now. So we see this building as another really important piece of the puzzle in revitalizing downtown Akron. In terms of the timeline, what we're looking at, about an 18-month pre-construction period. So that's what we're in right now. That's design, engineering, planning, ultimately construction plans. Around January 2025 is when we anticipate the building would actually go under construction. Be about a 29-month construction. It's a long construction period because we do plan on renovating it while it's occupied. So we'll have swing space and shift existing uses in the building within the building, but to keep everyone in there. And come the spring of 2027, we hope to have a new building for everyone in Akron. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
This is exciting. I recall back in 2016, or 2015, talking to the university and some of our partners downtown. We had plans to open it back then, and it was tough going, but it's great to see that the doors are going to be open on Main Street. It's just going to be an asset, just going to help a lot, I believe, with the vitality of our downtown. The question, though, I'm hoping that you're going to tell us how we're going to be able to keep the architectural significance of that building in our town. That's a lot of us, it is a historically significant building. I know rules are different probably than it is in the private sector, but I'm hoping that you're going to be able to keep that.
Yeah, and it is a great example of Art Deco architecture. I follow, as you know, some of these things where people will write about architecture, and I've even seen it in national discussions of like Art Deco department stores. So the vast majority of that budget we anticipate is going to go to the interior. So I wouldn't imagine the exterior would be changed much, maybe with the exception of probably some new signage. We'll have a new name for the building that's still being worked on, as well as maybe improved lighting. But I would anticipate from all the work that's been done so far that the exterior would remain largely what you see, maybe with one other exception of the ground floor windows. If you've been in that building, it's partly due just to the sheer size. You can be in the interior and it's really hard to know, first of all, what direction High Street or Main Street is, but also to see windows. And so some of the architectural changes that we anticipate would be perhaps making that atrium a lot bigger. For sure, designing it in a way where people can flow from the first floor, which is Main Street, to the third floor, which is High Street, without necessarily knowing, I'm on the first floor, I need to find an elevator, I need to go to 3 to get to High Street. But I wanted to mention that just to illustrate most of the big ticket items are probably in the building and not on the exterior.
That's great. No, that sounds like a great plan. Excited to see it come to fruition. Is there questions or comments in reference to this expenditure? Chair Mosley?
Just one question. Jason, you mentioned that there's going to be a new name for the building, so it won't be called the Polsky Building anymore?
That's still being determined, but we will probably have a new name. I don't know if it will include the Polsky in it or not. That's still something the president's looking at. But I would imagine, like a lot of buildings in Akron, if people want to refer to it by its former name, that's completely fine, and that happens a lot. So the biggest thing is we just want people to enjoy the building.
Okay, thank you.
Could be the Sean Volleman building or something. Nancy Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome back, Jason. Pardon my having my shoulder to you. I have 2 questions, and the first is, as a representative of the public to a representative of a public institution, I'm hoping you can give us an idea of what your other funding sources are for this project. And second part of the question is, right now I think we all see the Polsky Building as being probably 98%, and this might not be accurate or fair, but 98% really university stuff. Can you give us, and I guess really the residents of the city of Akron, an idea of how that'll shake out once this makeover occurs? Will that percentage in terms of citizen access and use of that space change? And what do you see that distribution being post-project? Thank you.
Sure, so those are great questions. To answer the first, right now one of the other really significant sources of funding is the state of Ohio. So we have state capital funds from the state of Ohio to the tune of close to $6 million in the project. A lot of the other funding sources, the city, if you were to approve this, obviously would be one and be much appreciated, but a lot of the rest we anticipate coming from private donations, foundations, and other nonprofits. And Kim Cole, who's our Director for Development, is hard at work on the fundraising piece. So not all the funds have been assembled. This $1 million over 4 years would be another piece of the puzzle, and to be quite honest, helps us leverage additional funds the more funds we have devoted to the project. And then as far as the second question, yeah, I can touch on that at least as far as what we know right now. So I would characterize it that there's 4 main categories of functions that'll be in the building. So one would be the creative and art spaces, which largely don't exist right now, but would be created. The second would be what people are familiar with Polsky primarily for right now, which is classrooms, offices. Almost every college is represented in the building right now, and we anticipate that would continue. A third set of functions would be clinics, and I'll describe what I mean by that. We've got our audiology and speech pathology in the building, so right now that brings people from the outside who have appointments. We've got some other health services. Those might be expanded or enhanced, and we're thinking about bringing some other university uses that serve the public as well into the building. Another example would be law. Right now, law is the one college in the university that doesn't have an explicit presence, and we're talking to the law school about putting maybe legal clinics in the building that would serve the public. And then a fourth category is retail. And so, you know, as I mentioned before, a lot of you have been to the Starbucks, but we would really like to enhance the food and beverage offerings in that building, perhaps add a couple other places people could get food and beverages, particularly if the performance space is created to have food near that, and the food would serve both people in the building as well as from, you know, the community at large. So the exact proportion of all those uses, that's actually what our architects are studying right now. So I think if you talk to me 3 months from now, we would have a lot better idea of how that would all break down.
Do you want to offer? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? I have one last question. I'm not clear on the funding where it's coming from exactly. I know it's budgeted, but is it CD funds, GO? It's the source is not quite spelled out exactly.
This would be, I believe we had it budgeted under GO, but I can double check.
Okay, if you could let us know, we'd appreciate that before this evening.
Yep.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Very good. Consent agenda okay on this?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is that okay? Good.
Yep.
Give everybody a chance to look at it. Is there a recommendation for consent? Is there? Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next is item number 9.
Item number 9 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with the Greater Akron Chamber of Commerce to provide economic and neighborhood development, marketing, and promotional services for the purposes of job creation, investment, retention, and expansion of existing companies in the city of Akron, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Sean?
Yes. Hello again. We, on an annual basis, enter into a contract with the Greater Akron Chamber, and it does a number of things, and including, you know, their leadership efforts when it comes to things such as the Elevate Akron programs and business attraction, retention. This also would include our annual membership as part of the Chair's Circle for the Greater Akron Chamber, as well as their diversity efforts that they have put forward. The amount of $160,000 has remained consistent for some period of time. I don't know exactly how much, but at least for the years that I have been in this position, it has remained the same. We have Steve Millard here with the chamber. I don't know that he gets the prodigal son greeting that Jason got, but yeah, no. We like Steve as well, and if you have questions about the chamber and what they do, and the relationship, he's here to help with those.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome. We do appreciate everything you do with us and for the city and the region as well. Steve, if you'd like to say anything, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sean, as well for the introduction. Yeah, this is just our annual overview of work that we do. We've kind of laid out some of the areas of specific support. It's everything from the BRE activities that we help to coordinate with multiple partners in our ecosystem to the work that we're doing in the area of small business support and other work that we're doing to create just capacities to help us all do a better job. The blocking and tackling with the companies in our community, everything from our small business portfolio to our larger companies as well. We enjoy the relationship that we have with the city leadership, various departments and activities, and really are very willing to do whatever is necessary to help support growth in the region, especially in the city of Akron. So I take any specific questions that you have, but I've just been very pleased to be able to work with the city on this work.
And if I could add one more, I didn't mention, but their leadership and efforts with the polymer cluster, all the polymer cluster work that we've done, and the attempts to get additional funding from the state of Ohio and the federal governments have been, extremely helpful as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it mentioned the diversity work. Can we hear maybe a little bit more about that? Of course, we had the report a few years ago with conjunction with the county and the city and the chamber.
Yeah, we continue to push in that space. We have a dedicated person on our team. Her name is Ebony Porter. Some of you may have met Ebony. She works very closely with the city's diversity leadership and is also sort of working with many of our companies to provide support for our Diversity Professionals Council, which are people in institutions and companies across the region that are charged with DEI work in their companies to help them with best practices and those kinds of activities. We've got a procurement council that we've stood up recently with a number of our institutions working on how do we get to a consolidated list of our MBEs and better make that available. And then just lots of work with individual companies. Sherry Shields on our team has a portfolio of small companies that she visits with and talks to provide help and support. We've got about 160 minority or women-owned companies in the city of Akron on that list. About 140 of those are minority-owned, Black, Hispanic, other races that we specifically reach out to and connect with. So there's a number of different activities that we're doing across the organization in that space.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Questions or comments? Oh, I see Linda Mobian's hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you for recognizing me. I want to follow up on your question. Is it possible for Ms. Porter or whomever this person is, Steve, to give us a report on what's happening in this area?
Sure, we could definitely arrange for that, whether you would like it individually or in committee. We could have Ebony introduce herself to the committee. She's been with us for, as you know, she came on after Robert DeJournette left. So she's been with us for about a little over a year at this point, and I think those initiatives are coming together. So I'd be happy to find a way to create a forum for you there.
Good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Anything
Yeah,
else,
I'd be
Ms.
grateful
Mobian?
to give a report to committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'd be grateful to give a report to the committee so the citizens can hear it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Is consent agenda okay on this item, or?
That would be great.
Is that okay? Good.
Yep.
Is there a recommendation for consent agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor
Second.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Very good. The ayes have it. The Planning Committee of Council is adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Millard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Our next committee of the day will be the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. Again, that's the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, it's 2 o'clock, and our next committee meeting is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. All committee members are present whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. If I could get approval of our previous meeting minutes?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 pieces coming before us. The first one is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and sign the grant agreements between the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, and the City of Akron for the new perimeter fence at the Akron-Fulton Airport and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, we applied for a grant, and if awarded, we'd like to replace the perimeter fence out at the Akron-Fulton Airport. Not only replace existing, but we do have some permitting. We have some perimeter fence that does not exist. So on the very west end of the airport where the railroad tracks are, there is no fence. And we did receive a wildlife grant to do a design of this, so we already received that. And then this would be another 90% funded by FAA, 5% by ODOT, and then another 5% by the City of Akron. So the 95% of this will be funded by the grant funding. There's always that possibility of, unfortunately, a deer running onto the airport grounds, but as Councilman McKittrick can attest to, we've had some four-wheelers out in that area at the Rubber Bowl, and they've actually come across the tracks and they've been on airport property, which could be hazardous. So this will eliminate that by putting this fence in. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Any questions for committee members? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Little. I feel like this is my annual duty where I inquire about the level of use of this airport and who the users are.
I mean, I can get you that data but the airport, with adding some of the hangars, has increased, but I can get you that data on the number of trips in and out of that airport. Absolutely.
Thanks. Just trying to get an idea of, return on investment. I do appreciate that even a relatively low use does not excuse us or forgive us from FAA regulations, but it's a costly thing to maintain, so appreciate that information. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions from committee members? Councilman McKittrick?
In regard to Councilwoman Holland's question, being that I live in very close proximity to the airport, there is quite a bit of use, and so much so to the point that I've had residents complain about the amount of air traffic, which I explained that was there before they purchased their homes, but it is used quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can attest to that. We lived on Dalton for 12 years, and the traffic, it was something. My daughter lives on Gibbs, and they hate it because of the airplanes, but it's being utilized for sure. So any questions from any other council members? What will be your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Consent, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next piece is an ordinance authorizing the mayor as designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the Strengthening Mobility and Revitalizing Transportation SMART Grant with the U.S. Department of Transportation, and to enter into a contract or contracts and/or purchase agreements or purchase orders pursuant to fulfill the grant obligations and goals by publicly advertising for bids, receiving quotes, proposals, self-performing work, and the direct purchase without advertising for bids for specific equipment and services, and declaring an emergency. That was a mouthful.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. Yes, this credit for this application, a lot of it goes to Jim Hall and the people at Public Works. Tessa's here, and I believe she's in chambers. She's helped with this also. Emily Collins also helped with this. So what this grant will allow us to do, by applying for this will help us with safety and mobility. So we took crash data around the city, and we targeted this area, which is south of 76, from Arlington to Kelly, in that whole area over there where we've had a high rate of crash data, and also with the mobility. So by putting these sensors in, we not only will be able to look at real-time data, temperature sensors, for our snow and ice operations. Also, we will be able to purchase or provide sensors for mobility as far as people riding bikes or walking in that area. It also, we could extend this out to, if we receive more funding, to air quality. So is it, you know, we experienced that this year in June with the wildfires and being outside. Would it be something that we could target? It's not really safe or to be outside right now. Maybe you should use the Metro bus, or maybe you should use a different form of transportation. But this will help us also drive more walking, you know, where are bike lanes needed, where are people out riding bikes. So this is no cost to the city. There's a lot that goes into this. We're hoping anywhere from $250,000 up to $2 million. But if you do receive this funding, it goes up exponentially from there to do more with this data. So this is only one small portion of the city, but if we're successful, we'd like to expand it throughout the city in different neighborhoods.
So the funding is from 250,000 on up?
Up to $2 million for this.
$2 million?
So we're applying for, obviously, the $2 million, and hopefully we get something in between. And then whatever funding we receive, then maybe we only receive enough funding to do the pavement sensors, okay? And right now, the pavement sensors would have they have a 3-year agreement where it has a cell signal. So it's not hardwired into the pavement, it has a cell signal that gets back. What we're looking at with our IT department, and Darren's been helping us, now that we're putting all the new smart meters into everybody's home, we're gonna own our own low frequency signal. So that's how that signal is getting back to the water department to look at everybody's water meter. So they're not hardwired, they're not a cell connection, they're not fiber optic. So can we use the same type of sensors to leverage that so you don't have that cell signal in that pavement, okay? The pavement sensors with the cell, they work fine. But after 3 years, would we have to, you know, pay for that cell? We don't want to do that. So we're looking at that type of technology. So that's all what's going in the grant. This legislation is allowing us to apply for that. That's what we're asking. And then we would come back to you, you know, if there's any money to be expended. But this is just to apply for the grant, and right now there's no cost to the city.
Okay, got it. Councilwoman Holland?
This is just outstanding. Thank you so much, Mr. Luddle, and the team that's working on this. This is how Akron continues to become a modern city. Leveraging technology and using the kind of creative, outside-the-box thinking to go out and find these programs. Start with a corner of the city and expand it out. I am psyched to see this kind of thing coming before us. So, you know, I've always said on every board I've ever served on, let's see, do we pursue funding for a brilliant idea? Yeah, I think we do. Thank you so much, Mr. Luddle.
Any other questions from any committee members? Council?
One other thing I forgot
Yes.
is traffic counts. Obviously, traffic counts. How many cars are up and down there? Right now, we couldn't measure speed, but obviously with the speed tables, that's one thing we did as a pilot. But this will allow us to look at traffic counts too.
I can't wait to see one of these on Kelly Avenue. Shameless plug. What would be your pleasure, Mr. Luddle?
Could we suspend the rules to get this
Can I get a
going,
motion
please?
for suspension of the rules?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Last piece is an ordinance approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board selected pursuant to Section 53.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City and Resolution Number 182-2023 to hear and determine all objections to the special assessments for the improvement of Wilshire Road between the termini of Sand Road, Run Road, and North Hawkins Avenue Zurich Road between the termini of 40 west of Summerhill Drive and Balmoral, how do you say that? Balmoral?
Balmora Drive.
Okay. What Chris said. Drive, Polson Drive between the termini of Rocky Hollow Drive and 450 degrees north of Rocky Hollow Drive, Rockwood Drive between the termini of the west cul-de-sac and the east cul-de-sac, Rocky Hollow Drive between the termini Ledge Drive between termini of 70 west of Rocky Ridge Drive and Shady Ledge Drive between the termini of Rocky Hollow Drive and the west cul-de-sac Stoner Street between the termini of Junio Avenue and Crestview Avenue, Cortland Avenue between the termini of Hawkins Avenue and Hartford Avenue, Hazel Street between the termini of Bank Street and 800 degrees, is that degrees or 800 feet? Feet. East of Bank Street, Goodyear Boulevard between the termini of Johns Avenue and 510 feet of Johns Avenue and North Arlington Street between the termini of 70 feet south of Munson Street and 465 feet north of Ford Street by the repair of concrete pavement, determining to proceed with the improvement and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
It would have been easier if we just did High and Market.
Right, jeez.
Just kidding. Basically, we passed this legislation June 12th for the concrete streets. We had the hearing last Thursday. This will allow us to accept the recommendations by the board. There was no changes in any of these street parameters or anyone's assessment. Everybody understood once we had the hearing, so this will allow us to move forward with the program.
Okay. We had some residents come before us a few weeks back. Are any of these streets that they spoke of mentioned in here?
Well, they sent in their objections and they came in and we explained to them. Most of it was the cost.
Okay.
But it wasn't about, whether it was needed or not. It was basically about the cost.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions from committee members? Councilman Mallett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the administration and the service department. Wiltshire has been a big priority, not only for me, but for my colleague, Councilwoman Keith, before this. And so really glad that this will be done. It's a big priority. And I know that concrete streets across the city are a big priority for many of us around this horseshoe. So I hope that we can continue investing in those in the years ahead.
Any other questions from council members?
Unfortunately, we won't be done before the marathon on Saturday. So be careful when you're running down Wiltshire.
4 days, it's not bad. It's not.
Consent's fine.
Are you sure? All right. Can I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us. We are adjourned.
Our next committee today will be the Public Safety Committee, and it will begin at 2:15. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. Again, that's the Public Safety Committee, and it will begin in just a moment, just another minute at 2:15. Thank you.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
She all right?
Yeah.
All right. Always checked on mine.
I know, I sent someone over to cut up.
Okay, it's 2:15, and we'll begin the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members again are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. All committee members are present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present, and we did host a meeting last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Everyone in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have one resolution in front of us, and then we have a presentation from Chief Natko. So the resolution is encouraging the City of Akron Parks and Recreation Department to require the submission of a safety plan with all community event permit applications and declare an emergency. Obviously, last week we had a very good discussion in regards to our city parks and the event application process, and I think moving forward, I think the city will move in a good, positive direction. I've been doing my research the last couple weeks in regards to some safety elements that some other cities are doing throughout the United States and have already implemented, and I do see some cities do require a safety plan, so just something to encourage them to look into. So, any questions or comments from committee members? Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Thank you for this resolution. I think it's overdue, much needed. I know there's a time when, even when doing parades, we would have to submit maps. So if we have to submit maps, I think a safety plan is even more important. So thank you for this resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate that. Another reason I brought this in is just it puts more responsibility and work in regards to the community event applicants and makes them step up more and consider how important our parks are and how important human life is. So, Councilman Lombardo, did you have something?
Yes,
and I
thank
see
you.
Councilman Neal has his hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to go over an example, like if I wanted to rent Patterson Park ball fields for a baseball tournament. I mean, what's the safety plan? What's that all involve?
Well, a safety plan would be like if you, I'm organizing an event right now in Firestone Park, and my goal is to put together a safety plan to make sure we have, if need be, police officers on site or security personnel or volunteers that can assist with, first aid or any kind of security questions, or basically keeping a watchful eye out. That's something that I'm actually personally working on right now. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, is this going to be on the city to submit the safety plan, or the organizations that are renting the fields to encourage to, when you said like a first aid station.
Mm-hmm.
So is this going to be on the city to, lay that out for them, or the organization to say, okay, we hear you, city, and we're going to do this. We're going to hire our own, security team, private security. We will have a first aid station there, like you suggest. So who's that going to be on here?
So it would be on the applicant. Like another scenario I'll use is I've been involved with the Firestone Park Parade when it used to be around. The organization that put that together would always have anywhere from 4 to 6 officers that would work that event, and we also had volunteers that would basically keep a watchful eye about what's going on in the community park, and then sometimes we were assigned radios. We can always radio to the head police officer. Usually we had a sergeant that was available to us. And those were, obviously we haven't had the parade in a long time, but those were officers that we paid out of the organization. So we did have a safety plan just to make sure that, if somebody came up to us and was like, hey, we have an emergency, we have someone down here that cut their leg or anything like that. So it's just a basic safety plan. that the applicant needs to come up with instead of, I mean, we've all looked over those forms, and those forms are pretty simple, to be honest with you, but I'm asking community folks that want to fill out those applications to provide a little more, to go that extra mile.
Okay, so it's on the applicant to submit that back to the city, so then we sign off to rent the field or, space to.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like last week I heard like Councilman Neal brought up about first aid stations, and that's up to the applicant if they want to provide something like that. I know at the parade, when we used to organize the parade, we did have like a little first aid station in case somebody needed to come up and get a Band-Aid or anything small, minor like that.
Okay.
And then that was basically like an information desk also, where somebody could come up and at least the officers knew where the information desk was. And if they had to call like emergency personnel, if it was the fire department, we had that information desk, information table. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good?
Thank you.
I appreciate that. No, thanks. Councilman Malik, did you have something? Let me call on Councilman Neal. I apologize. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a suggestion. I've rented, do a lot of things with Akron Public Schools, renting the CLCs. I've rented venues like at University of Akron, Lee Jackson Field, rented when St. Joseph's used to be open. All of them have basic requirements that they mandate that you follow when you rent your venue. Part of that is so that they don't violate their insurance policy. I think one of the challenges is with the city, since we're self-insured, there's some room where maybe we miss some of those things. But this is, I truly believe that it would be in our best interest to have our safety director and safety forces evaluate each one of our venues, look at safety routes, anything that would be a challenge for emergency vehicles to enter and exit, and provide a safety plan for each venue that those who rent those venues would have to follow. And then if they want to, of course, add their own safety. Like I mentioned, I was a part of the African American Festival Parade back when that took place at the Sampow for many years. When we had vendors, the health department came out, of course, and looked at the vendors and made sure that we had proper fencing and whatnot so that children wouldn't run through where someone was cooking. Because we actually had an accident once where a child ran through an area and one of those grease fryers fell over, and unfortunately there was an accident there. So I do believe citizens they're going to miss things. It would be in the city's best interest to have a plan for each one of our venues based on what takes place there. I believe we should have a first aid kit for first aid station, depending on how many persons are there. The other thing is when you rent one of our CLCs, when you rent a venue at like St. Joseph's or John S. Knight Center, when you rent the University of Akron's venues, they always have a staff person on site to help address any issues. When you rent one of our parks, there isn't a city person there necessarily. So there's no one there to help those folks navigate what's taking place. So I believe it would be in the best interest for us to evaluate each one of our venues. Now, the CLCs, some of them are combined with some of our rec centers, and I think we could just follow the city's lead in that. But I do believe it would be in our best interest to have our safety forces, along with our park and rec, along with the, if they're going to have food, along with the health department, put together sort of like an outline kit that would assist in these areas. Because here's the bottom line. If something happens and people sue, the city's going to be on the hook. So it's best that we protect the interests of, those that are there, as well as our constituents that entrust us with the oversight of the city's assets to have a plan in place.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recognize, and I think we talked about this last week, that we are living in different times now and that different things are needed. My suggestion would be for us to monitor this new policy to make sure that we know how some citizens are impacted by this. Certainly, some of the suggestions that Mr. Neal made, where someone could help people understand what is a safety plan. And I think we're also talking about security forces, whether it be police officers or guards of some kind. But I would just like to know, for those individuals who either cannot afford or for whatever reason did not have their event because they didn't understand what to do or could not do it, that we understand after a period of time how this policy is impacting the citizens' use of our parks and other facilities. And that could be looking at it within 6 months or next year, or whatever the case may be, but actually taking a look at the impact of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of wanted to reflect on Councilman Lombardo's point and other points. I think the exact way in which this would kind of be implemented certainly would be up to the administration. But I think, obviously could take a number of forms, whether that's another sheet that asks some safety questions and asks the applicant to reflect on the safety implications for their event, because I think that's part of, correct me if I'm wrong, the motive for this, to get folks to think a little bit more about what they might need to consider. And then I think, that will then help provide more information for the committee that's looking at this and thinking about this from the city side. And, do we want to follow up with them? Do we want to get some more information? But I think it's a good first step, so I appreciate you bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. Anything else? Councilwoman Howland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I'd like to tag on to what Councilman Malik just stated, and perhaps I'm going to veer into the philosophical a little here. In our effort to develop some sort of policy around safety considerations regarding the use of public space and community events, I think we have to be mindful that even in our collective grief and concern about violence and gun violence and public safety, that the main goal, the primary goal, perhaps should not be so much shifting blame or responsibility as looking for a way collectively to figure this out. So even as, we wrestle with, the functionality of who's responsible for keeping us safe, perhaps we can be mindful that each one of us holds a piece, each one of us holds a thread in this complex fabric. I think it's an awesome resolution. I thank the chair for having the good sense to bring it forward, because it's a place to start. I doubt that anyone in this room left last week without carrying a heavy heart and a deep desire to find a way through. We know that what's been going on has, for whatever reason, including no reason at all, left us with sadness. But again, I just want to emphasize that the goal, primary goal, is to find a way, not to shift liability or blame. That's not why we're here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything else? If not, I'm okay with consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I don't think you can see that Councilman Neal has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Councilman Neal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other thing I want to suggest, that when we put this together, with COVID, I don't know if they still did it, but they would usually have a meeting where they would bring in all of the block club presidents, and the police department would have conversations with them about best practices for running a block club, and they would share so that they could strengthen that relationship and make sure that the block clubs function the best. I don't know, I haven't heard, but I think as we work to put this policy together, again, and I strongly suggest that the safety director, along with the safety forces, Park and Rec, and the health department work together, that we look at putting something together for those who want to host events, that they come for some form of training and understanding. And last but not least, on the safety force side, make sure that we have a list of approved security groups that work and that are available to work our parks. And then some group training for those who want to learn how to provide safety on their own. And then last but not least, I know we've talked about these park ambassadors. It will be good for us to move forward with formalizing that and have park ambassadors that when something takes place in the community or at one of our venues, they can participate. Because again, I'll go back to the African Festival. If you go to the African Festival downtown, that group that started out down at the Sand Pile, even though it's down at Lock 3, that group provides support to the staff and the city workers and the police that are down there by providing a security group as well. That's been trained and understands the protocol of the city and of the organization that's running the event.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments? All right, I did say if everyone's okay with the consent agenda is fine with me.
Motion for consent?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, moving forward, before our council recess, we had an update from our Chief of Akron Fire, Chief Natko, and Councilman Malik asked me a few weeks ago to bring him back and get us an update. So we have with us today Deputy Mayor, Public Safety Tucker, and we have Chief Natko. So I'll turn it over to you two. And we just want to get an update where we left off at back in July. Appreciate you two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to defer to Chief Natko so he can give us an update as to current status of Akron Fire.
Well, thank you all. As you know, at the end of July, AMR, who was our private ambulance contractor, left the city of Akron, and we were forced to absorb those additional EMS transports to the hospital. And we've done quite well with it up to this point. We've absorbed those transports, and our folks are taking it on the chin, so to speak, with the additional workload, and that's a credit to the men and women of Akron Fire. You know, when we walked into this, I had several plans in place to get us through the year, with at the beginning of the year understanding what was happening with AMR and where we were going to go. Part of that plan was hiring additional personnel for staffing for Akron Fire, and unfortunately our hiring process has been delayed by about 3 months. We're back on track now with that hiring process. We're interviewing people, and we plan to have them in our academy here by the end of the year, just after Thanksgiving, hopefully, if there's no hiccups or issues with that process. But that still puts us about 3 months behind, which in turn means asking my folks to continue to work overtime throughout that additional period of time. Thankfully, up to now, we have not run into the situation where we have run out of med units or run out of fire trucks on any incident. But we are close. We are dangerously close. There are days that come about where we have every ambulance on the street. We're entering the season of flu and COVID. COVID's on the rise. Flu, as you know, is something that happens in the fall traditionally, and we expect our run volume to just jump here real quickly. Because of this, we are going to run into an issue where we are going to overrun our budget for overtime. Up to now, and we've been within budget. We've maintained everything as we needed, but we're going to run into an issue where we have to come to you for additional funds for overtime in order to keep moving like we are moving now with the staff that we have in place now. Please keep in mind, we have some of our stations that the apparatus do not run independent of each other. Our goal is to have every ambulance stand alone, every fire truck to stand alone, every ladder to stand alone. We can't do that today. Today we are in some of our stations where those units are combined. In other words, if an ambulance goes on a run, a fire truck is out of service. If a fire truck goes on a run, an ambulance is out of service, and we can't get there. So I will come to you with an additional request for funding. Part of my goal earlier this year was to add additional med units to our fleet, to increase our operational model, so to speak, to add 3 additional med units to our entire fleet. We run with 13 med units right now, and we were going to add 3 additional ones. We successfully added 1 med unit. Not 3, but 1. Part of that's due to staffing, part of that's due to equipment. We place them at our highest volume station, which is Station 6, and it's worked out wonderfully. The incidents, Station 6 was our leading district for med runs. They were also the leading district for having other units flow into their area to take care of their business. Since adding an additional med unit there, two units now run out of Station 6. Their run volume has been divided between 2 units. The stations around them now feel an impact as well. 4 stations around them have less of an impact with daily EMS runs because of this 1 additional unit. We're also going to add another one at Station 2. That is our next station that we've identified that has the leading number of runs. Their district has the leading number of incidents where other med units have to flow into that district. So that is the plan. To do this, I'm going to need upwards of $921,000 to continue with my overtime, to continue with adding med unit, and it was unforeseen. I will say at the beginning of the year, we did ask for more than we were given. When we talked to the mayor and when we talked to finance about what we need to operate through the end of the year. We didn't get everything. We got a lot, and I appreciate that, and we got enough that we could hire bodies. But again, we did not anticipate a 3-month delay in hiring folks. And that's kind of what has led us to where we're at right now. So, you know, the additional funds that we will be requesting are not going to be frivolous. You know, they're going to be spent on staffing. They're going to be spent on two additional ambulances. Those ambulances won't even be brand new. They will be used. We're trying to do something where we can get an ambulance in quickly, and that is buying a used ambulance. We do have a grant outstanding that we're hoping to have some good news on, but we don't have any word on that yet. Grant would award us 3 new ambulances, and we're still waiting on that word on that. Even if we receive that grant, it's going to take us up to 2 years to get those new ambulances into our fleet and part of the circulation. So right now, we're limping along. When we create these new med units, we're using spares. Pieces of equipment that have upwards of 70, 80, 100,000 miles on them, and they're just not reliable. And that's kind of a roll of the dice sometimes for us on whether those additional units, when I put them into service, whether they will continue to function and roll. It's, you know, we will make work with whatever we get, but it's not ideal. And ideal is what I'm asking for. So that is my report. I don't know if there's any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Before I call on some of my colleagues, I kind of want to backtrack. I know you said you added one med unit, and we have two other ones.
Yes, sir.
Somehow I must have got lost. Are we just have one of those three in service right now?
That is correct. One of those three is in service.
But the other two are on their way, or?
The other two, we have a unit that is being refurbished right now. When it comes in, we will utilize it. It won't be in until late next month. As soon as we receive that, we will put it into service. But with that comes, I will need personnel to put on that. I can't take from one area to put into another area because I create a void in the folks on the line. And I have to, when I add ambulances, I have to add personnel. Again, the additional staffing that we were granted isn't here yet. And we're waiting on it and we're pushing to get it. But we're still several months away from hiring those folks. And I do have a plan to fast track some of those folks. Once we're done with interviews, if some of them have the appropriate qualifications, we will fast track them out to the line. We will know that more as we move forward with interviews and you know, whether they look right for us or not. So there's a lot of moving pieces to the new group of personnel coming to work for us. Did I answer your question?
No, that did. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll just say one more thing is I understand personnel. We have to staff those med units. And obviously we talk about funding is the big issue. But when you mention about breakdowns or med units not being in service or, you know, good quality, that's a very big concern for me. And I hope we as a city can do whatever we can to make sure our citizens are getting the best quality, you know, a ride to the hospitals or wherever, and we don't have anything breaking down. So whatever I can do to help, I'm here. Thanks.
I appreciate that.
All right, I see Councilman Lombardo first.
Thank you. First of all, Chief and Deputy, Chief and your title, Deputy? Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. Thank you for what you do. But you mentioned Station 2 and Station 6. Where are those stations?
I am sorry.
I know we're 7.
Station 6 is on the west side. That is on Hawkins.
Okay.
And Station 2 is our newest station, which is on Arlington and Exchange there. The fountain out front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other question I have is when you mention standalone, I'm assuming that, let's just say a station has, you know, 6 people, you know, 2 for the fire truck, 2 for the med unit, and 2 for whatever other vehicle you have. So if you only have 4 people, that means, you know, they can't stand alone. Like when the 2 people have to go or whatever, that means they can't cover their other vehicle, right?
That is correct.
Right, okay.
And we never, if a station has 6 people and it's a station that has an ambulance and a fire truck,
yeah,
4 of those folks go on the fire truck, 2 of those folks go on the ambulance, and they can run independently of each other. If that same station only has 4 people, we can't do that.
Right.
And we never put just 2 people on a fire truck. That is unsafe, and we would never go there. So those 4 people would ride on the ambulance together, or they would ride on the fire truck together. That's how that staffing works out. And it just plays out across the city at all 13 stations, and we try and spread it out as best we can, but sometimes we cannot.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Nacko, you referred to possibly fast-tracking some individuals to employment. How many are we talking about, possibly?
So, you know our need, and our need is for paramedics.
Right.
Our need is for paramedics. That is what we need desperately. We've accelerated the process to put paramedics into school, to put our firefighters into school. And Councilwoman Mosley, thank you for that hookup with Stark State. We've been engaged with them and talking with them about paramedic school. So we're sending 30 of our untrained folks off to paramedic school. 30 of them. That's a huge impact, huge cost as well. But they won't be ready for months and months. That's a 10-month process. So the fast track. When we put on a hiring, we take all comers. If somebody could come completely untrained and they finished very well on the testing, and they may be top on the list, which would get a very strong consideration from us. Somebody may come with a paramedic certification, they may be lower on the list. Right now, in the top 40 that I'm looking at, that I have 9 of those that have paramedic certifications. So unless there's something that I see with them in our interview process or in our medical testing or on our psychological testing that says, hey, you can't hire these folks, those are the types of folks we will probably fast track, would be the folks that have the paramedic training. I don't want to skip by a good candidate who doesn't have anything, because ultimately they will be a great employee. But I have to balance that a little bit with what our need is right now, which is needing paramedics. Unfortunately, out of that top 40, only 9 have paramedic certifications. And we can continue to look down the list a little further, and I'll see 2, 3, 4 more that we may be able to pick up as we continue with our background checks and the hiring process.
Okay, all right.
We plan to take ourselves to maximum staffing that is allowable by finance. I was pleasantly surprised that we got to the number we got to, which is 396. That's approved, and that's what we're going to hire to, which is 25 more than what were hiring before. We ran with 371, but running at 396, when we get there, will help fix a lot of these problems. Having those resources of personnel, fully trained personnel, will help fix a lot of these problems. But I just got to get there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Malik, and then McKittrick.
Thank you both for being here and for the work that you're doing. Obviously, this is a very serious situation that we're dealing with. A couple questions. For the academy class that's not going to be fast-tracked, when do we anticipate they'll be ready to start?
Could you say that last part again? That's not going to be fast-tracked.
Yeah. When are they going to be ready to start?
Before I can hire anybody, I have to kind of interview everybody.
Sure.
So we hope to start an academy class by November 27th.
And then when would those folks be hitting the streets?
They could hit the street about 3 months after that.
Okay.
And that trains them for firefighting. That doesn't give them any of the EMS training, but it does train them to be firefighters, and we can put them out in the street working as firefighters. We still have the challenge of getting those folks through paramedic training, which comes further down the road. We're looking at late next year for that, but we are forecasting out into that late next year timeframe. How do we keep everybody trained? The folks that we fast track, the 9, 10, 12, whatever it may be, paramedics, we'll bring them out. We'll have them functioning as paramedics. They won't have their firefighter certification initially, but once we get the academy class trained and released out to the streets, then we'll take those 9, 10, 12, whatever they are, and pull them and send them through firefighting school, which will be another 3-month process. It'll probably be like a back-to-back type thing. We'll run one school for the folks who have no paramedic certification, then we'll run a second school for those folks that we initially fast-tracked that have paramedic certifications. It's not something we've done before. It was a novel idea. Sure. To get paramedics out working with our folks, because we just really need paramedics. Our folks are I don't want to say at the end of their rope, but they are fatigued emotionally, physically, and we can see it sometimes.
What's the staffing level today?
Staffing level today is at 356.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks to both of you for taking time out of your busy days. I know you guys are quite busy throughout your days, so thanks so much. Chief, I have a question pertaining to what we've taken over as the Code 2 status now, and the mindset's changed since we're arriving on the scene now, and we know we're not going to be waiting for a private ambulance to show up. So you had talked before about how that might expedite the mindset to say, well, this is a Code 2, and prepare to transport that individual. So that would make it a little quicker to get them to the hospital. But my question in regard to that is, are we still seeing issues with transferring patient care at the hospitals, especially with the Code 2 type of transport, because it's not the priority that a Code 3 patient would be? Thank you.
Good point. The hospitals have been on their best behavior for us. We've been meeting with them almost weekly, talking about wait times. When we see there is an extended wait time at any hospital, our EMS Bureau is on it. They're talking to the hospitals, asking why, what went on, what's going on, and not being complacent or accepting of that. Because we found that as soon as we let our guard down and say, oh, it's okay that they waited there an hour, next thing you know, 2 are waiting an hour, or 3 are waiting an hour. So recently, what we've seen is that about 16% of our runs are at the hospital for over 30 minutes. About 6% of our runs are at the hospital for over 45 minutes, which is hard to really accept at times. And if we have a large amount of our med units at the hospitals all waiting that 30 minutes or 45 minutes, then it becomes a big problem. Then all of a sudden we don't have a unit available. But that's what we're seeing on average right now. It's not terrible, as long as they all don't happen at one time.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, I'll let you have the final word if you have anything else to say to us.
I do not, other than, I'll be working with finance, with Steve Fricker, and, to get to these numbers that I've talked to you about. So I didn't want to surprise anybody, let alone Steve. But it's kind of unfolding as we move in that direction with our class. We hope good things happen with our hiring process and the class coming on board. That's all we're waiting for.
All right, thank you, Chief. I do see Councilman Fusco has something.
Thank you, Chairman. I see Mr. Fricker here. If I understand this, and I apologize that I step out for a moment, but in its simplest terms, we're asked to find $1 million to get us through the end of the year. If I understand that correctly. And I see Mr. Fricker's here, and I don't want to put him on the spot, and of course, obviously this equation can't be solved in a short amount of time. But Mr. Fricker, I guess the question is where do we go to find $1 million? I'm not saying that would be the final number. It may not be that, and I had heard you say something, reference that. But Mr. Fricker, it seems as though that we're in an extremely difficult time as a result of the leaving of the service, the ambulance service. Just wonder what your thoughts were on some of this.
So I think I need to look at what the savings will be from the fact that we are not bringing the entire class on. So we did budget the class for the last quarter of 2023. So there is some full-time staffing budgeted there. The other thing I will mention is that Fire has done a very good job so far of managing their overtime to date. So they're actually down over $700,000 this year versus where they were last year. So, and we did budget a little bit more. So now, that's not to say that we will not need some additional funds to get us through the end of the year. So clearly the trend is going to be higher over time for the remainder of the year. So I think there's some number crunching that needs to be done. Now, Councilman Fusco asked, where would we get the money? Potentially, we could draw on general fund reserves. That's something that we do not like to do. You know, we've worked hard to build up, you know, a pretty good reserve over the past couple of years, you know, basically utilizing the CARES Act funding that we received. You know, we want to leave that intact as much as we can. So, you know, we can do that as a last resort, but, you know, I think we just we need to look at what our remaining costs are for the remainder of the year and see whether we need to do that or, you know, I think next year will be the bigger challenge because we're going to have the class for the entire year. You know, so that's going to be a challenge to budget for in 2024.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's, I realize we typically do get a budget adjustment for the end of the year to close it out. And I know that work's going to be done as well, and I know that we're very concerned, obviously, all of us are, in terms of this year, and obviously, Council, I'm sure if there's anything we could do to assist in this regard, stand ready to do that. But we find ourselves in difficult times, and Chief, do appreciate all of your efforts to manage the resources that we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Echo what Councilman Fusco said. Councilman Malik?
My colleague and I were discussing this. Are we getting any money from billing the federal government for, you know, now that we're taking over calls?
Yes, our EMS billing will conservatively double for a full year. A normal full year of EMS billing, at least our last full year, was about 2.2 million. We'll look at 4.3 million as an estimate, maybe more, maybe a lot more. We don't know until we try it for that additional transport traffic. So that was our latest estimate. It was about 4.3 million for a full year of those transports. Now we'll realize some of that for the last half of this year, for August on through December, but we don't know what that looks like until after billing and collections have occurred and everything's in. So it's all an estimate.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at what I did budget some additional revenue for a partial year of the medical billing, the transport billing. I can't recall off the top of my head. I have to go and look and see what that amount was. But yeah, as Chief Nacko said, it was a partial year. So, you know, because we just started doing the transports, what, in July? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think just speaking for everyone, thank you for, you know, the work that's being done. I know this is taking a huge strain on the department, and we appreciate, you know, all the work that's being done. And, you know, I think the sooner that we can get to a solution, the better. And it's something where we have to be good stewards of the employees just as much as we're responding to these emergencies.
I will say one last thing. We are going to propose a billing increase. It will likely wait till the new administration's in place because it is a charter. It goes into the charter, and those numbers that we bill for are part of that. So we'll look at proposing that as well. See where that goes. It won't be anything more than being equal and kind of on par with the rest of the municipalities around us are like. So it won't be anything outlandish.
All right, thank you, Chief. Deputy Mayor Tucker, I appreciate you coming down. Thank you, everyone. Steve, thank you for chiming in. I appreciate it. And Chief, just tell all the men and women thank you for what they do, and we support them. I appreciate it.
I sure will. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned. Thanks.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, McKittrick, Connor, Mosley, and Holland. We'll give everyone a few minutes here. Thanks. Mr. Chair, can we give it just another minute here before we begin?
Sure, that's no problem.
Thank you. Okay, our next committee of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, McKittrick, Connor, Mosley, and Holland. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bithian. I'd like to call the Public Utilities and Green Committee meeting to order. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have one item coming before us today, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Land and Water Conservation Fund grant and declaring an emergency. Who will be speaking for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. This application, we're applying for grant funding behind our low boys, as we call them, off of Talmadge Avenue. This is at the corner of Redstone and Longstone. Water Department has 4 water tanks in that area. And just south of those tanks, we own 20 acres approximately of green space that's wooded. It's in the city here in Ward 2. And with this green space, we were looking at what the best uses for this green space could be. And if, Sarah, you could bring this up, we'll show you a map. So this black line that you see is a trail that we'd like to put through there. Now, with our walkability study throughout the city, and I would be remiss if I didn't give Jessica Glucheski, Emily Collins, and Tessa Smith, who's in the audience, all the credit for this, that applied for this and developed this. But take these 20 acres and make it a walkable path through there. So if you start at the top of your screen, which would be north, there'll be a little parking lot up there, approximately for about 10 cars, okay? And then the path would be paved as you go south, and it would be a loop trail about a half a mile. Now, the elevation falls way off if you've ever been up there. And I think, Mr. Lombardo, you walked it with us, how it really falls off. So there'll be a set of stairs, and then the lower trail would be a half a mile trail, and it's going to be like a crushed stone, what you'd see like in the metro parks. Now, these funds will help us secure all the materials. Public Works, between highway and mostly parks maintenance with some of the equipment we purchased with issue 4 money, we've put some of these trails in. For example, Joy Park we're doing, Snyder Park. We've actually paved a couple small parking lots. So paving this lot with asphalt, but there again, the grants would pay for the funding of the asphalt. And then the paved half-mile trail on the north side of this property. Then the other part would be the crushed stone, which we'd buy all the material for. So we think if you look down on the left, that Madeline Park, I believe, that is, I don't know if that's an AMHA, but really there's nowhere for those residents to go anywhere and walk. A lot of that there isn't even sidewalks. So we would build a sidewalk from their property onto our property. And then we would turn over responsibility to maintain that sidewalk to them. And then once it got onto the city-owned property, it would be our duties and responsibilities to maintain that trail in perpetuity. And then down in the right corner there, which would be the southeast corner, that's basically Ward 10. So even residents down there would be able to access the trail and use this trail. So this is an area that we looked at, and we feel it's the highest and best use. And to give those residents, because right now we try to look in the city, if you live here, do you have a place to walk within 10 minutes? And then really by this access, there is no place for these residents to live in or around this neighborhood to access something in 10 minutes like a park setting. And then we do own land going directly east, and then we have another stretch of land, it's not on this map, off of Vane Avenue that abuts the Talmadge Avenue. I think it's the Job Center and the Title Bureau. We own more land back there, so in the future we could extend another trail and then put more trails back in there for the residents to live off of Vane Avenue. So that would be another area we could look at. But this is what we're applying for right here. So with that, I'll take any questions, sir.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Holland has her hand raised here in chambers.
Okay, I'm sorry, did not see that. Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This isn't a question. This is just an expression of deep appreciation. Once again, the outstanding team of Mr. Luddle and Ms. Collins, receives the deep appreciation, I think I can say for the whole committee of the Public Utilities and Green Committee. You guys are the MVPs for, for green initiatives. And this shows, once again, creativity, the industry that's involved in going out and finding funding opportunities. And look, let the record show that this is what environmental justice looks like in motion. This is about delivering green space to an area that deeply, deeply needs it. This not only changes the picture in terms of measurable climate impact, but this changes how people feel. And what we know about environmental justice is that when we feel good, we do good. Pardon the grammar, but this is provable too. There is a wonderful contemporary thinker and writer. I'm a big fan of her, and if we've talked about environmental issues recently, you've heard me mention her name. Her name is Rebecca Solnit. She's the author of a wonderful book that I highly recommend. And the title of this book is It's Not Too Late. Rebecca Solnit preaches, I guess, what you might call the gospel of the idea that small victories are the most important kind of victories when it comes to protecting our planet, when it comes to advancing the cause of giving us all an environment that we need and deserve. This is just such a thing. This is cause for celebration, that we've got folks who are in service of the city of Akron who have this kind of vision and this kind of thinking and this kind of drive to go out and get this. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you. Just wanted to add on as far as what Mr. Luddle said as far as, the area was Redstone and Longstone. There are several streets along there, Whitestone, Brownstone, Yellowstone. And I just want to let everybody know that, those streets don't even have sidewalks. So when he talks about, is there somewhere to walk within 10 minutes? I mean, walking outside their houses is dangerous on those streets. I know Brownstone is a constant highway of the Spectrum trucks. So, that's really all I wanted to say. I mean, yes, celebrate. It is Ward 2, so yeah, I would be celebrating this, but thank you.
A lot of the credit, sir, does go to Jessica up in our watershed. It was basically her that brought us this idea, and then Tessa and Emily really helped craft this thing. But it was really Jessica's idea, and I give her a lot of the credit for this idea. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think I recall when the Madeline Park project was had, that was one of the concerns, was there just wasn't any place to be, any place to go. So any other questions or comments? I might not be seeing something. Sarah, you can help me.
I don't see any hands raised here in chambers, Mr. Chair.
What, Mr. Little, what is the what's the name of the park going to be? We decided on that, or is it?
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you, sir.
The name of the park?
The name of the park, that I don't know. We call it Coal Hill South Park Project.
Okay. Okay, excellent. All right, what would be your pleasure, please?
Could we suspend the rules, sir?
Okay, do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, fantastic. We'll pass that out this evening. I look forward to seeing that happen. All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee today will be the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. If we can give everyone just a moment here. Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. We are ready here in council chambers for the Budget and Finance Committee. Again, those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. All committee members are present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. As Ms. Viviana has reported to us, all committee members are present. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We have nothing on the old agenda. We have two items today. First item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent on behalf of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contracts with Ullman Electronic and Technology Services for audio recording, visual technology equipment, as well as installation services.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair. I was trying to mute. There was some background noise, and I accidentally muted you.
Okay. I'll start from the beginning.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It happens at home all the time. So this is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent on behalf of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contracts with the Ullman Electronic and Technology Services for audio recording, visual technology equipment, as well as installation services for the Ocasek courtrooms and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think that the legislation kind of speaks for itself. This is to pay for the cost of moving some of the equipment, the audio and video equipment for the courtrooms over from Stubbs over to the new Ocasek facilities. Montreal Jackson from the courts can kind of explain the details on this.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. These are new microphones. I haven't used them yet. So, yes. So the Ullman is actually the vendor that's working on all of the electronical and technology installations over at the Ocasek project. The equipment that needs to go over is related to the original Summit County virtual courtroom project that was funded through the CARES Act a few years back. It ties the court into the jail, and then also because the upgrades of the courtrooms, they're bigger courtrooms, that means there needs to be more audio equipment. Of course, the requirement of courts is that we're required to record legal proceedings and to preserve the record for appeal on court cases.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Are there any questions or comments from committee members or other council members, please? Yes, Mr. Malik?
Thank you very much. Can you describe the process by which Allman was selected, and was there a competitive process?
So Allman is the existing vendor on the project over. There were, because the equipment that's being installed is very unique equipment, and a mock courtroom was set up. And so at this point, because it is an emergency type of situation where the planned move-in date for the court is this year, the Ullman Electronic Company is already familiar with the other installations. The request was to proceed with Ullman because they already know the layout. They already have specifications that are needed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Fricker, what would be the pleasure in this?
I think we would like to pass this. There's the moving dates of everything going over to Ocasek are pretty tight in terms of that's all happening this fall. So I think we'd like to pass this if we could.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
Make a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion, a second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, good. Thank you for that. Next item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent on behalf of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contract or contracts with Bell in Court, DBA Connected Justice for the dismantling, decommission, and installation of audio recording equipment to be transferred from the Stubbs Building courtrooms to the Ocasek courtrooms and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is Montrella Jackson. This vendor, BN Court, is the original vendor that does all of the programming related to the equipment. The Crest Run equipment is part of the project, as well as the programming services. They will be the continuous vendor that's been hired across the county for all the courts to continue to maintain the program. However, the original vendor that you heard of, Ullman, is actually doing the physical installation of the project.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Do not see anyone. Just before we vote, before we went on recess, we voted to have all the physical moved and whatnot. How's that process coming along?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question.
Before we had gone on recess, we had voted to have all the records moved, physical records moved, and I was wondering how that process was coming.
This is Gert Wilms, Chief of Staff for Mayor Horgan. I have been included on some email chains from the management company working on Ocasek, as well as Debbie Walsh. It looks like the timing is working out. They've done a lot of the measuring, a lot of the ordering. Everything seems to be moving in a timely manner to get the court up and running by the Veterans Day holiday in the Ocasek building.
So ETA is Veterans Day. I don't think I was aware of that.
I'm very uncomfortable saying those things out loud, so I probably just jinxed everything, but thanks a lot, Councilman.
We have it on our screen here, so thank you, Ms. Wilms. So, all right, any other questions or comments? Mr. Neal, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, and this is in relation to the last piece of legislation that was passed as well. A lot of these companies have existing relationships, and of course, we're doing this work, so we're calling them back, and I understand that. But we often talk about creating opportunity for more inclusiveness, opportunities for smaller businesses or minority and specifically Black businesses to have an opportunity to get into this. Now, I don't know, one of these companies may be, but I'd like for us to put into the legislation where they create an opportunity for a collaborative partnership with a minority business, specifically a Black business. We're trying to achieve those goals that were outlined in the Brookings Institute report. 30% in bid contracts is we're 30% of the population. Not forgetting other groups like women-owned businesses and things like that. If we can start looking at making sure that they partner with such business. And I say that because I don't know how much of this is one time or how much of it will we have to be maintained over a period of time. But if we never create an entryway for businesses, they will never have the opportunity. So I'm sure there's with more that's going to be taking place, that we'll get other pieces of legislation like this. This goes back to what we talked to before about with the finance department and all departments, since we're coming up on another budget cycle. What is our definition of equity, and what are the metrics that we're using to make sure that we accomplish it? So I'd just like to ask, I don't know if it's possible with this, but especially when we talk about audio and whatnot, and when we, like when we did the Ring cameras, I have businesses that are right in my ward who can do some of this work. Just would like for us to be intentional about creating opportunities for businesses to partner with those who have had longstanding relationships with the city and majority companies, so that we can create those equitable opportunities, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Would Mr. Fricker, Ms. Wilms, anyone like to maybe answer? I don't know timing wise. If we're I'm not sure, Mr. Neal, if were you requesting that this be amended or?
Well, sir, if there's an opportunity for that to take place with this, not, we've asked this for years, for us to have a process to where we make sure when these come through that there's opportunities for small businesses, minority businesses, and specifically Black businesses that have that opportunity to participate, and so that our contract bidding process is reflective of our community. So again, if it's possible with this, that would be great. If not, we know that as we go forward with this process and others in the city, there will be opportunities. There shouldn't be another one that comes before us where we don't have something in place to make sure that we're accomplishing our goal.
Okay, thank you. I've not obviously been a part of the bidding process, but I would just defer back to folks on the other side there to see if they would have any answers to that, please.
Unfortunately, the short answer is no, we don't have the opportunity to rebid this based on this ongoing project and meeting some deadlines. Mr. Neal, Tammy Tucker is working on those issues daily, taking a look at the procurement policy, taking a look at definitions. What should we be doing? What are we doing? What are the best practices? So anytime you'd like to speak with Ms. Tucker, I know she would definitely like to do that, but she is definitely putting pen to paper with a lot of these policies, especially around procurement.
Okay, thank you. Are you looking around? Okay, Mr. Neal, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Just in that light, I know have presented some best practices when it comes to metrics that we could take a look at. And in line with this same thing, I mean, we all got the message from last week where Miss Carla Matthews, I believe, of us asked questions specifically, and that was her area of expertise, where she could assist us in putting those things in place. So not saying that we're not doing anything, but it's just not moving fast enough. The Brookings Institute report came out, 7 years ago now? Just be good for us to have something in place to show that we are intentional about making this thing happen. We're getting ready to come into a budget, capital budget, and then another fiscal budget, operating budget, excuse me. It'd be nice to have something in place to make sure that those budgets are reflective of our priorities.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Neal. Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments, I think probably in keeping with our previous piece of legislation, do I have a motion for suspension of the rules?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor? please let it be known by saying aye.
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 All right, we'll see that this item comes before us this evening. And with that, we are adjourned at 3:27. Thank you to everyone on the other side of the room for your comments, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 7 p.m. tonight. Thank you.